Hello and welcome to another episode of the G.I. Joe New News Review. I am David Allen. This interview was originally planned for 3D Joes, but due to unforeseen circumstances, the interview will now be presented here instead for your viewing pleasure. I hope you enjoy. Hello, welcome to 3D Joes, the repository for all things G.I. Joe, artwork, toys, packaging, and comic books, and the merchandise for the brand. We are going to be interviewing today Brandon Jewra, who worked at Devil's Due as a writer and one of the creators there. And I have my co-host, Roger Taft, to join us today. Hello, Roger, and hello, Brandon.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
So
I'm sitting far enough back that it looks like I have a gigantic hand. It's perspective, I promise. See,
that adds to the 3D effect.
That's right. The 3D jokes. That's right.
So I'm going to go over a couple of things here before we get going. Brandon, I guess you were a lead singer for band SD6 and Omnibox and Relay.
Yes,
you were
yes.
also a DJ. You
Yep.
got started into comics in 2003 at Devil's Due on their second series, Frontline, 11 through 14. You've worked on Highlander, Battlestar Galactica, Stargate SG-1. You also worked for the Red Circle imprint at DC Comics doing The Shield. And you're working on a documentary, Kickstarter documentary about producing comics. Is that all correct?
Yes, the documentary's been done for a long time, but yes, all those things are true. You've
been busy.
Do a lot of stuff.
So let's go back to 2003, I guess.
Okay.
Josh Blaylock was lucky enough to get the license of G.I. Joe, and he created Devil's Due, an imprint of Image Comics at the time, and he had been writing G.I. Joe for a couple years, and then they started a second series of G.I. Joe called Frontline, and you got to submit for that series, I guess, and you got a 4-issue arc about Chuckles, 11 through 14. Can you give us the little breakdown of how you got this submission and how you got into Devil's Due and got an opportunity to write for G.I. Joe?
Sure. So I had been a radio DJ, as you mentioned, and radio at the time was making a big change, and so when my wife at the time got an opportunity to take a job in Portland, Oregon, we moved to Portland, and we agreed that I would watch our very young child while I looked for a new job, because radio jobs just weren't a thing. And in fact, I was classified by the Employment Department of Oregon as a displaced professional, and I was allowed to pursue any career that I wanted while still getting unemployment. So I told my wife that I wanted to write comic books, and she said, "Great, keep looking for a job." And Devil's Due, I mean, we're talking early days here. They had just put out their first issues of G.I. Joe. I think they were on issue 3 at the time that I contacted them, but I wrote a letter. I mean, like I wrote the most formal business-like letter, "Dear Sir or Madam, I would very much like to write G.I. Joe comics. Would you be willing to look at a submission from me?" And I thought, well, you know what? At least I tried. At least I can say I tried to write G.I. Joe. And they got back to me, and they said, "Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and send us a script sample. Sign these release forms. Show us what you got." And I was like, "Oh my God, now I have to write this. Oh no." And I actually had to go online, and thankfully the Dark Horse Comics website had a sample of what a comic book script looked like, because I had no idea. So I think it was a Hellboy sample, and I went and I was like, okay, I'm going to write it like this. And I did. And I wrote the first issue. I think I want to say I wrote the first issue for what would become that frontline arc. And I sent it off to Devil's Due, and I waited and I waited, and they got back to me and they're like, "Hey, we think this is great and we'd like to buy it. We'd like to give you a gig." And I was like, "Oh my God, okay." And they said, "We're going to put you in this anthology series that we're gonna launch in 2003," because at the time it was definitely 2002. And I said, "Okay, great." And they said, sort of stand by, go write, the next issue while you wait. And I did. And they got back to me, and we set everything up. And then I had written my 2 issues. And when I got into the first writing meeting, Josh Blaylock said, "This is 4 parts, right?" And I was like, yes, it is. That wasn't the plan. So I went and I wrote 2 more issues. And then they made an event out of it. They released those issues weekly.
Wow.
And all of a sudden it was just happening. And Wizard magazine, which at the time everybody read Wizard to know what was going on in comics, and they wrote this little blurb about me, and I was so excited. But then I read it, it was like, it made it sound like I had won the ticket to the chocolate factory, right? Like, fan gets chance to write G.I. Joe. And I was like, well, I could also be a writer. I could, but I'll take what I can get. It worked out in the end. But yeah, that was how it happened.
Now, were you a G.I. Joe fan growing up?
Oh God, yes, the biggest. That's why I chose G.I. Joe. I loved comics, but all the G.I. Joe knowledge was still here. And because Devil's Due was continuing the Marvel run, I was like, oh, I know this one. Like, I know this story, very well. No, I was a huge fan from the first wave. Flash was my first figure, and I was hooked from there.
Well, it's interesting that you wrote this story, because Chuckles really was on an upward momentum, and maybe it had something to do with your story, because when they got Chuckles at IDW, Costa, or whatever his name is, did that incredible Cobra run with Chuckles, and Chuckles is now considered one of the best G.I. Joe characters. Everybody wants to do stories with Chuckles, but you got really the opportunity to do this story, and it was a fantastic story, I have to say.
Oh, thanks.
But in the end, you kill him.
Spoiler alert.
Yep.
Yeah, no, here's the thing is, I did kill him during the Battle of Cobra Island when I was taking over the main series. Hasbro had given us a list of characters we could kill, and Devil's Due wanted to kill some characters. I've said this before, Chuckles was always meant to come back, despite his death looking so certain. But yeah, I did kill my baby for sure. And yeah, I mourn it to this day. There's a great photo of me I have from Dragon Con one year, stabbing a Chuckles cosplayer with a prop knife. He came up and asked for it. He's like, "Would you do me the honor of killing me again?" Okay.
Well, Roger knows this, but recently I read all the all the Devil's Due comics in like a 3.5-day period to get ready for doing a series of these interviews with you, Josh, and Tim, and so on. And so I kind of figured he was going to come back. I was like, there's no way they're going to keep Chuckles dead. There's no way, because in the World War III storyline, there was all these mysterious characters. You didn't know who they were until they were revealed. I was, oh God, I bet one of them is going to be Chuckles. He's been hidden and he's kept under the radar. Nope, none of them were Chuckles. I was like, I can't believe this. They left Chuckles dead.
Yeah. No, if my I had intended to bring him back during the Red Shadows storyline, but that got cut a little short. So, and it ended up being the end of that series. So I didn't get a chance to do that, but that was actually the plan.
Was he going to be Lady J in disguise, and he died again?
also dead again. No. He was going to have infiltrated the Red Shadows.
Okay. That would have been cool.
So yeah, you got to take over the regular series after Josh Blaylock relinquished the reins of writing. He stepped back into the more editing and producing chair, and he let you take over the regular series. That must have been pretty daunting at the time. Were you ready for that?
Who knows? I still don't know if I was ready for that. I was. I mean, I to the extent that I definitely, when he said the opportunity was on the table, I was like, okay, this is it. It was between me and Dan Jolly, who also worked on Frontline and has ended up doing great things with Transformers. He wrote that amazing Transformers video game. But yeah, I knew it was between me and Dan, and so my tactic, for some reason, because I thought that everybody loved each other, was I reached out to Dan. I was like, hey, I hear we're up for the same gig, right? Like, I'm a big fan of your work, and I just wanted to say, hey, we're in the same boat. I hope it turns out for one of us. And he told me later, we're very good friends. He's one of my very best friends. But he told me at the time, he's like, is this a threat? Like, what is this? Is this guy coming over here like, hey, I hear we're up for the same job. Be a real shame if you had an accident, right? But I ended up getting it. Dan's career worked out just fine. He's okay. But yeah, it was very exciting and definitely a little daunting. I was shocked when I got the opportunity. I figured I would be the fill-in guy at best. Right,
Yeah.
like, so.
Dan, I think, did Micronauts, I believe, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
So you were able to do, which I talked to Josh about not too long ago, the definitive origin of Snake Eyes with Snake Eyes declassified, and it is perfect in every way. I can't see a flaw with it. And we were talking about this right there, why they didn't use your story for that. Well, your story was really built on many people's stories that had gone before you, Larry Hama and animation and different other iterations of Snake Eyes that were all combined. But it was a very good story, and I consider the definitive Snake Eyes story.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That was daunting. That was very scary when they came to me like, you're going to do a Snake Eyes book. I'm like, cool. They're like, we want you to flesh out the origin. And I was just like, wait, what? You want me to? But Larry did that, and he goes, no. We're gonna go big, and we want to recontextualize a couple things. And I was like, okay, but that was extremely, extremely terrifying for a little bit. That was. I mean, that is, that's like the sacred text of my youth, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. And hey, we want you to punch up the Hobbit. Oh, okay. So I was really happy with the way it turned out, and obviously people really responded well to it. But yeah, that scared the crap out of me.
Did Larry ever talk to you about it? Because he did the declassified G.I. Joe miniseries.
I've met Larry a couple of times. He's been very nice. He's never said anything about my work, which is, totally fine. I'm sure I've said many things about his work, like, thank you for completely creating my childhood and creating my career, even though you didn't intend to. I did get to see my kid thumb wrestling Larry at Disney World one year during a G.I. Joe convention. So that was pretty good. I have that story. I have that mental image forever.
There you go.
He didn't yell at me, so I guess
well, that's a key right there. If he doesn't yell at you, then you're probably in good standing.
That's sort of the bare minimum of when I do work is, am I going to get yelled at for this? So,
and that could happen. You never know. Nowadays, it's crazy.
Absolutely.
So right off the bat, you created a whole slew of really cool new characters that were multi-layered, multi-dimensional, barrel roll, depth charge. You also did Wraith, and then a mysterious character called General Ray. These are all very unique characters that continued on in the series after you left it into the next iteration from Devil's Due as well. So it's got to be unique. And some of these characters have been done in toy form as well.
Yeah. Barrel roll. You mentioned barrel roll and
depth charge.
Depth charge. Yeah, those were figures that I chose to use. they were already figures at the time because Hasbro, was going strong on new parts of the toy line. And to me, like, that's half the fun of GI Joe, is playing with the new toys. And I was never once told you have to use this or we want you to use this. No one ever said that to me, but I was excited by these new toys. I thought Barrel Roll was super cool. And Blackout and that family story I really dug. Wraith was all mine. I would love, I do secretly hope that Wraith will have some life in GI Joe in the future. I think Wraith is a very GI Joe character that I'm very proud to have created. So that was definitely me. General Ray was a great character because I created Ray with two different options. He could be Serpentor, he could not be Serpentor. And there's lots of ways, and I knew that we could decide one way or the other when the time came. But I was really happy to see people respond to the use of new toy characters, but also absolutely new characters. And because Josh had done a bit of that, he definitely introduced some brand new stuff to the line. And of course, if I had the reins, I wanted to make sure I did the same.
Yeah.
So again, nobody yelled at me, and that was great. And Wraith got a figure. Wraith got 2 figures, that was exciting beyond any comprehension.
Well, but that's kind of what this was. It was when Larry got the original brief for G.I. Joe, it was a toy property comic. Nobody wanted it. Larry was able to be the last guy at the end of the hallway. They said, hey, you want this? Okay, there's no one else here. Sure, I'll take it. And he introduced a lot of his own characters, and he had a difficult time trying to get all the toys in there every year, try to bring all those new vehicles and toy characters. He had a difficult time. By the time it gets to Devil's Due, you guys don't really have to do that because the toy is not the same as it was when Larry was doing it. They were creating new characters based off the comic book that you guys were coming out with. Kamakura, Scalpel, Deathstroke's son, like you said, Barrel Roll, and all these Depth Charge and all these guys, Overkill and everybody were based off the comics, and the reverse of the other way, where Larry was basing it from the toys and putting it in the comics. So that process was different for you guys.
Yeah, I think that for Devil's Due at that era, I think it was more, at that time, it was, revitalizing the IP rather than using it strictly as a connected tool, to drive people to buy toys or whatever. So we were able to do our own things, and like you say, not worry about that so much.
Were there any comments or anything from Hasbro about don't do this type of stuff?
No, not really. I know that with Snake Eyes, I had definitely in the first issue, and Roger, do you own this issue? Is that
I own the script for it? Yeah,
he has the script for it. And I had definitely gone deep with young Snake Eyes and questioning God and all these things, and they were like, maybe let's not do that, and they were cool. They great, but they really, God, they let me do so much. Like, I put Hawk in a wheelchair, and we definitely had to have a meeting about that.
Yeah.
When I told them what I wanted to do, they said, please be sensitive. One person literally said, don't call him Wheels. And I was like, nope, that's definitely not a plan. They're like, don't put a missile launcher on the wheelchair or anything. I was like, no, got it. Check. But, that's an important conversation to have, because some other comic person might be just like, this thing can fly. Let's go. Right. It transforms into a jet. Right. No.
Yeah. Put him in Xavier's gold wheelchair. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
That was an important aspect of taking the reins of the series. I can imagine for you is to grow the characters, add to the lore, and improve the brand with these characters. Yeah, you did maim Hawk, you did kill off Chuckles, and then you killed off Lady J, you killed off the Baroness, kind of. She was kind of brought back, but you did develop some story characterization with these characters. You didn't just let them stay at status quo. They were able to do different things than they had done before with the series under your tutelage.
Well, yeah, and I did want to do different things, and I wanted high drama, and I wanted things that the fans would be talking about and yelling about. There was a little bit of yelling about some of those things.
Yeah, Lady J in
Yeah,
as a first item there.
yeah, and that was not, I've said before, that wasn't really my choice, but that was it was definitely a high drama moment. And when you look at the whole of the line, I understand, what they were going for. They needed a big thing to kick off their next iteration. So I as somebody who did all those other things we talked about, in hindsight, it was an effective story tool, 100%.
One of the characters that got inadvertently or maybe intentionally changed irrevocably if this continuity had continued was Flint. Really, Flint came out messed up into the next iteration.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a development that you intended.
No, I had nothing to do with that.
Okay.
But that, I mean, it's what else was going to happen, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's,
It's logical.
they weren't gonna jump ahead 6 months, and Flint's like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
like,
now I'm dating Jinx. I'm good.
right.
But that
Instead, I'll
was
become the Punisher.
Yeah.
but that was a character that was an even keeled, straightforward, by the
Mhm.
book type character, and he went off the rails and stuff like that. And that
Yep.
shows that these characters are not set in stone. They can change. They can have new developments in their lives with their people, and the writing, the craft, the quality of writing that you guys have done with these characters shows that they can be developed like this, that there is some mature level of writing going on here.
Thank you. Larry was excellent at showing consequences, right? The actions had consequences. And when you're following a huge epic run like that and you're still in that same continuity, a lot of the good consequences have been used already. So you have to go to new places. And we went to some heavy places, but I think that we stayed true to that notion that, war is hell. Regardless of whether or not it's an ongoing war against a snake themed terrorist organization, rather than a war in a particular setting. But it takes its toll, and I think that the audience had matured by that point. The core audience, we were obviously hoping to bring along as many new readers as we could, but with GI Joe, a lot of the same people are going to show up decade after decade, and that's kind of what makes it magical and what makes it so prosperous, even now that we're sitting here in 2022 talking about it, because we were all there in 82, I assume, right? Or 92 or whenever. So that's what it is it's that investment in those characters. And we just had to take those characters to new places, be it good or be it ill in some cases.
And speaking of new characters, again, you developed a whole new faction, the Red Shadows faction. And I don't know if the Red Shadows were developed that much into the toy line, but you guys did a really good job with the comic versions of the characters, and it kind of harkened back to almost the Adventure Team era of GI Joe. That's what it felt like to me with these characters.
That's kind of what I was going for. And I've said before, I had much bigger plans for the Red Shadows, but the book was ending and everything. But it was nice for me, it was nice to introduce a faction that was not on either side and was equally a threat to everyone. Because when you look at GI Joe, it's a very interesting property. I mean, the closest thing that I can relate GI Joe 2, besides Transformers, where you have two factions and they fight week after week, is it's sort of like Star Wars. You know who the villain in Star Wars is going to be 90% of the time. And in GI Joe, you have the same. And in fact, you have a property that is built half around the villains, right? Like my GI Joe book was 50% a Cobra book because that's what I always liked the best. Is I wanted to see the Joes, but God, show me Cobra, show me what's going on, and so the Red Shadows were a chance to just like let's go nuts and let's scare everybody. What is so bad that the Joes and Cobra are both scared of them and both concerned about how they could mess up their plans.
And it's true. And Josh had already amped up the pressure when he did the coil with Serpentor, and you took that and you rolled with it with the Red Shadows and created another faction. He gave more difficulties to the Joe team, so they didn't just have Cobra, the Dreadnoks, Crimson Guard, the Iron Grenadiers. Now they had coil, and now you did the Red Shadows, and they were a different flavor of villain because they were kind of like a Cold War type of series of characters, and it wasn't, they've never done anything to my knowledge in GI Joe like that, so it was very fresh. It was a new and fresh thing, and it gave different challenges because these guys were smart, they were organized, they were coordinated, and I don't think GI Joe even realized how coordinated they were until they were getting characters killed off.
Yeah, no, that was exactly the plan. And I did, mention the Cold War and everything. I wanted to sort of play on that legacy of Joe and Jane and, not just say, oh, well, they were sort of the progenitors of GI Joe. Well, give us a reason, tell us why. And so, yeah, it was a fun new way to play with the toys again.
And Joe Colton and GI Jane, even though Larry had brought them in from the adventure team in the original GI Joe, they barely were used. So when Josh started to touch on the fact that they were in this series, he didn't use them a whole lot. You used them more, I think, and then obviously they were used as the main leaders of the next iteration of the Devil's Due. I liked it because it gave a pedigree. Not that the regular Real American Hero didn't have enough of a pedigree, but this harkened back to the original GI Joe, and it felt important.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's all aspects of GI Joe. We can stay out of space. That's fine. I'm fine with staying out of space, but I think everything's always on the table. If you have the action figures, play with the action figures.
That seems like a good opportunity to jump in with a question. There seemed to be an unaddressed relationship between Joe Colton and Van Wilder. Was that going to be developed further?
Van Wilder.
I'm sorry, Wilder Van. I forget his name. Von Wilder.
Von Wilder. Wilder Von.
Yeah.
No, I definitely.
Sorry, it's been a while since I read those issues.
No, it's great. Now I want GI Joe fighting Van Wilder. There was, to me, it was sort of a, it's the classic two sides of the same coin kind of thing. Like you have guys who are about the same age. You have, they probably have had very similar career paths, good or evil. And what I wanted to explore and didn't get a lot of time to do was that sort of, you put two people at the same starting line and they end up very, very different.
Okay.
I
seem to recall trying to figure out which adventure team member he might have been back in the 70s.
I did not. You know what? I can sit here and pretend, I had an answer. I didn't have that one. But that is definitely that would have come into their shared history, I think. I'm going to take a drink really quick.
That's fine. That was one relationship I thought we were going to get a little bit more of, but the first series from Devil's Due kind of got inadvertently cut short with two like prestige format extended issues, which I thought, why are they canceling this series? This could go to issue 50. Why are they stopping with issue 42? It didn't really resonate with me why that was.
above my pay grade. Publishing. I mean, really, publishing. It all comes down to publishing. I would have liked to have gotten issue 50. That would have been a nice benchmark. That would have been great, especially because 26 was technically my first issue, but I came on at 24. So getting to 50 would have been cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Josh didn't say anything about it when we talked to him. I guess it was just they were ready for a reboot and they wanted a fresh, new version of it, and so that's why they went the way they did. But they did continue a lot of your plots, a lot of your stories rolled over into that new series. So obviously they thought your writing and stories were good because it felt like it was a continuation of your series that you were writing, even though you weren't writing it.
Yeah, that's correct. I wasn't. I didn't read it for a long time. I was not quite ready to pick up. I read it, and it was good. It was a good continuation. Like you say, they did a good job of starting the new series, but making it feel connected.
Right. Yeah. It was definitely a fresh start, but it was definitely connected to what you had did and what Josh had did and established, because it was still establishing some of his plots with like Destro's son, Serpentor, and a couple other plot threads that he had going on. The only plot thread that I thought was a little weird was you guys created a second sneak peek, killed the second sneak peek off, and then somewhere along the way they said the original sneak peek was back. I was like, what? What is going on with sneak peek?
I have zero involvement with sneak peek, so I'm all clear. Nobody's going to yell at me about that.
Excellent.
That's one of the mysteries of G.I. Joe, the history of G.I. Joe. Now, no one's going to be able to answer that question, the mystery of what happened with Sneak Peek. Larry doesn't even know what happened.
Plausible deniability.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I can't talk about Sneak Peek. But
someone needs to do a declassified. Someone should do a declassified miniseries about Sneak Peek.
That may be a little narrow of focus for the
it's half an issue.
Half an issue, right? You're right. It's just a sneak peek of the issue, is what it is.
There you go.
So how do you feel your relationship with Devil's Due as you were working there? Did you have a good rapport with Josh and the team? And were there any issues that you had during your time there?
I was definitely a little outspoken, and I was definitely a little probably cocky. It was my first time in comics. And I was given the gold ring, as far as I was concerned. And so there were times, I think, when I was probably a little difficult to deal with, and they were, an up and coming publisher, so not everything went to plan all the time. And over the years, I have definitely looked back and thought, well, I probably could have been a little more easygoing. Not from the start. I was very, very easygoing from the start. I think we got kind of in the middle of the Joe run, and things started to get hectic with other launches like Reloaded and stuff. And I started to feel a little like, oh no, my days are numbered. And I was not right about that, obviously, at first. But I was definitely kind of a rascal to deal with at times. It's funny. Most everyone from Devil's Due I've talked to. I've very recently spoken to Mark Powers and Marshall Dillon, and I count them as very good friends. And we all kind of look back at those times and laugh now. And laugh about the times when we weren't necessarily laughing. It's great. Like, Tim Seeley obviously has done very well for himself, and ended up being a writer, in addition to his artistic skills, which I think is great. Tim's a very creative guy, a very sweet guy. So I have always just been so happy to see him succeed. And I haven't talked to Josh in a long, long time. I'd happily talk to Josh. Josh, I hope you're well if you're listening to this. We were just, we were all new at making a thing, and there were times when it was tough, and there were times when it was fun. And I think at the end of the day, we put out something good that we're all, I presumably, all very proud of.
And the interesting thing nowadays, and I talked to Josh about it, and Roger and I have talked, and Roger and I are huge in the community in our own respectful ways. And the community are really coming back around to Devil's Due and realizing that the work that you guys did was quality work, and the storylines were very good, the characterizations were very good, and they felt that the continuity that you guys had established was a good continuity continuation from Larry's, even though now it's kind of been disavowed.
Literally disavowed.
Exactly.
I think the last 3 years, the last 3 years I've been on a lot of podcasts, a lot of different podcasts. Obviously I've, spoken to Roger before, for the book and everything. And I am so pleased to see that people are revisiting it. There have been a couple of situations I've been in where I'm talking to people who, two of the people out of the three have read it, and then somebody else is new and they've never read it. And so to experience it being taken fresh, and being enjoyed now, even without the context of the time, is like, that's very rewarding. I always hope that things that I've worked on will get another chance down the road, especially things, I say non-GI Joe things really in this case, because I worked on a lot of licensed property books, but like, it's nice to see someone revisit those things 20 years later, 10 years later, whatever, and find value in it, because comics are short form entertainment and they're many times of the moment. So I'm glad that they don't just have to live in that moment sometimes.
Well, I think that's the unique thing about comics, even though they are of the time, and you can go back and read any comic book from the past. And I bring up like maybe Spider-Man as an example, and you can tell with the bell bottoms and stuff like that in some of the stories, it was done in the 70s.
Yep.
And some of the stories that Larry wrote, even for G.I. Joe, even though they had certain tone to it, you could tell they were of the time of the 80s, and certain things of like X-Men and X-Force, you could tell that was done of the 90s because of the way the bodies and stuff were drawn and things like that.
Yes.
The
X-Force
technology
defined the 90s.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know a 90s comic the second you see it or read one page, right? Like,
yeah. Every pouch will tell you exactly what you're
all those pouches, none of those feet.
Exactly.
Right. But this, you guys, it was, I think the 2000s, it spoke from the 2000s era because of the technology, even though Josh and you guys were doing as good as you could to keep up with the technology, and people were using your storylines, like the G.I. Joe movie, Sigma 6 was using elements of Devil's Due and things like that, that you guys are staying fresh with the brand and not just retreading those old stories.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny you mentioned technology. I've always thought that we were very lucky. Now, looking back, we were very lucky because cell phones were a thing, right? Like, the technology that we had then is pretty much still the technology we have now. It's just better, right? So we never had to have anybody running to find a phone booth or anything, right? Everybody could have a phone. So that I like, because I do read comics, or you watch an old show and you're just like, if these people had a cell phone, this TV episode would be 5 minutes long.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Logic would dictate they could get themselves out of this jam very quickly.
Well, it all comes down to the writing, the suspense of the writing, how you make the characterization of the characters, develop the characters and the story and stuff like that. And this was your first writing gig, to my knowledge. So your skills as a writer had to have come from something. Was it previous comic work that you read?
It was, this is an excellent question that I have had to talk to myself about a lot, is that I was a terrible student in school. I loved to write, but I was lazy. God, I was lazy. And you know, if I told you, oh, I wrote 100 stories in high school, I'm a liar. I wrote 5, and they barely made it across the finish line. But for me specifically with GI Joe, when I was a kid and I would play with my toys, like I had a plot and I would keep notes. And if somebody got injured the last time I played, they were probably injured the next time and they couldn't go on the next mission. And there were story developments, and it never occurred to me until much, much later, but that's writing. That's, that is creating something. And so when it came time to do GI Joe, and I was just like, oh, I said I wanted to do this and now I have to do this. Oh no. I sat down, and I mean, what you saw is what I wrote. Those weren't 10th drafts. Like, that's what came out. And it's, to me, I think is rather than being some great educated person or some great practiced writer, my ability is absorption, right? And I'd been watching TV and reading comics and reading books for so long that stories were just understood to me, I guess, right? And then I had to go learn things about actual storytelling and take classes and, try to make myself a better writer, because that's always a good thing to do. Even now, I live in LA, I'm looking at writing classes at UCLA. I don't believe that you have to constantly be in school for writing, but, you can always learn something. And I guarantee you there are many things I don't know. So I'd like to find out what they are.
Well, then the old adage, the last thing you learn, if you continue to stop learning, then you are done. You're finished. You're over the hill, whatever it is. So you have to keep growing and keep moving forward and improving and bettering yourself. So that's cool. I'm glad to hear that you have that mindset that you want to keep doing better and improving yourself. That's a quality characteristic.
Thank you. No, I've been writing video games for years, and I got into video games very reluctantly because I don't play a lot of video games. And I do now that it's, my full-time job all the time, always. But at first I was very reluctant because I'd get offers for video game stuff. I was like, no, I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy. And then finally somebody was like, just write this damn game. And I was like, okay. And I did. And it was, once again, like, it all comes down to story. And sometimes I've actually found that not knowing how video games are made allows me to not have any mindset about what I can or can't do. So sometimes I'll be talking to an engineer or a designer, and I'll say, could we do this? Because I don't know if we can or not. And it actually gets us somewhere, right? It actually leads to a thing. So maybe that's a gift of ignorance in this case. No limits for the ignorant.
Well, but it's worked out for you on several cases.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you didn't know how to do a comic book, but you got G.I. Joe and you made it work. Same thing with video games, and I don't know what other stuff you've done, but
I didn't know how to be a radio DJ either. Really, truly. So
then it's a good pattern for you.
Yeah. I'm just going to start choosing careers that I know nothing about. Like, I could run a missile silo, right? I mean, how hard is it, right?
Yeah.
Press the button, don't press the button, right?
Yeah.
Missile stays in. That's the whole job. Okay, got it. No problem.
Don't press this big red button over here.
This one?
Yeah. So then you leave the mainstream G.I. Joe series and you get Master and Apprentice. You get to develop Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, Kamakura, and the whole Arashikage clan of characters. And those were very good miniseries in themselves to develop those characters. Even though Snake Eyes probably had so much development over the years, you still added some fresh stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, no, those were great, man. I loved. Great in that I enjoyed working on them. I'm not reviewing my own material, but they were pretty good. I'm very, very proud of the first Master and Apprentice, especially. And then, the second one, like, because it was about Storm Shadow, I really wanted to go in a completely different direction. Like, and I loved the character of Kamakura. That's a character that I'm super glad I saw that they're going to do a classified Kamakura, and
Oh
as much
yeah.
as I would like one of my characters represented, I was like, go on, Josh, like that's amazing. What a character to persevere. And I think it's really, really great. And he was great, and I loved, like in the first one, I definitely used some characters that some people might find a little goofy. Budo and Nunchuck, and like you get into that Ninja Force bench, and you're just like, well, okay,
But they really did some serious stuff at
yeah,
Devil's Due with those characters. They were not
absolutely.
second bench characters. They had some serious storytelling involved with those.
Yeah, my favorite character to was Budo. I loved being able to do that, and creating this romantic tension with Jinx, and the
Yeah,
samurai and the ninja, and like that's an inherently ridiculous character, Budo.
yeah.
He says in the GI Joe world, like it was a lot of fun to try to legitimize those characters without taking away the fun of it all.
Mhm.
Like I'm not trying to pretend they're not what they are. Just let's give them some depth and give them something to do.
And I think that's why that Budo. There's a few people I know that's his favorite character. That's their
Really?
favorite character is Budo. And I'm like, why is Budo your favorite character? And then I reread all my comics. I was, now I know why Budo is your favorite
Yeah.
character,
Oh,
because
I
someone
didn't. I
gave
didn't
him.
know Budo was anybody's favorite character. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, there's a few people I know that's their favorite character, and that's the thing with GI Joe. And Larry has said this in numerous interviews. Every character is somebody's favorite character. You
That's
don't
right.
know
Exactly.
what this character is going to do for this fan until that it comes out. It comes on the page, and then they're like, "Oh my God, that's my first comic. I love that character." And then there you go. And that's
Yep.
why you have
No.
to write these characters with the respect that they deserve. And you and Larry and Josh and the others after you have done that.
Well, yeah, if you look back at that first front line, I've got this team. You've got Chuckles, but you've also got Beachhead, Flash, Tripwire, Airtight. Like when I was a kid, I found ways to put Airtight, Flash, and Tripwire on every mission. Like there's nothing to do with their specialties, but they better come along just in case.
Well, Frontline was a really good series in and of itself, and I know we
Mhm.
kind of jumped over it, but it was kind of like a special missions, but it wasn't
Yes.
just a special missions. It was kind of like a black book type series in several of those stories. And then it was kind of a day in the life of as well. It was many different iterations, and it was able to go in a lot of places that the regular series didn't.
Yeah, and you like you say, special missions definitely a blueprint for me in that. That was one of the things that I always loved as a kid about Mask was that you would turn on an episode of Mask and they would pick who went on the mission, right? Rather than having a fixed set of characters or whatever. And that's something that Frontline I think did especially well is Dan Jolly's the Icebound story, right? You
Yeah.
even had a couple of the major characters in there, but they were working with others who were not in every issue of the main title, and that to me is that's great. I tried to do that a little bit too in the main book. Is mix it up, and I had an arc where the Joes are reduced in size, and then they're kind of on the run a little bit, and I wanted to make sure that we weren't just doing Scarlet Duke, Roadblock, Snake Eyes, like
The core character hub.
why is Dodger here? Well, because he's available, right? Like why is Grand Slam here? Because he exists and he's cool, and let's go, right?
Well, Powers really he got his use out of every character when they did World War III. God, I was astonished at every character they fit into that
Oh yeah,
story arc.
yeah, that was astonishing. I thought we did pretty good with Cobra Island, but they really they brought everybody out. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
people that you didn't even know were on the bench they brought out.
yep.
You guys got to do some of the foreign characters like October Guard. They used the female character from that and brought her into the GI Joe proper and made her an actual Joe, and they made her a toy, and they said that she was on the GI Joe team. So that is astonishing that you guys are actually developing stuff in the work that Hasbro was following through with as a toy. Like I said earlier, a lot of the characters that they made, now they're making Kamakura as a classified figure. So that's got to be something that makes the whole team proud.
Oh, absolutely. No, and it was my idea to use Dinah, and I gave her a code name, Verona. And I wanted to get her in there. I always loved the October Guard as a kid. You probably know, I'm a member of the October Guard in figure form.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so when that happened, obviously I couldn't use Dragonski. I like writing myself into the story. Yeah, I loved it when the October Guard showed up, and at that time, I thought that it was great to build out that sort of international roster of the Joes, and yeah, it was just another fun toy.
Well, I was going to ask later, but can you talk about becoming Dragonski since we're
Sure.
here?
Sure. Yeah. So I always lose track of what year it was, but I was actively working on the Joe series, and because of Barrel Roll, actually, and Blackout, Barrel Roll is a character named after Hasbro designer Dwight Stahl, who at the time was working on Joe, and now he is the king of the Marvel Legends, and he does everything great. Dwight is the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He loves GI Joe, and he and his brother and his sister are Barrel Roll, Blackout, and Bomb Strike. And again,
actually, I think it's his daughter is Bomb Strike.
Oh, it is his daughter. You're right. I'm so sorry. It is his daughter. Yeah. So, thank you. So I saw that in the toys, and like I said earlier, nobody ever told me, you have to use anything, and I glommed onto these characters so much, and they were very exciting figures and very exciting concepts, and he came to me and at San Diego one year, and he goes, "Man, I can't believe you're using this. This is so cool." And he said, "Hey, when you get back from San Diego, I need some shots of your head." And I was like, "Oh, I think I know what this means. And so I did take shots of my head. I didn't have a beard then, and I shaved my head completely bald. And I ended up becoming Dragonski, and I was in the October Guard 3-pack, the comic packs that they did for Toys R Us. And I got to be on a game show called I've Got a Secret, and they figured out my secret. They ask yes or no questions, and yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That gives you
it's the coolest.
It's on a whole nother level as pop culture that you don't go into this stuff thinking, oh man, I'm gonna be on a game show and I'm gonna be a toy and
right. And I've always wanted to be on a game show. That's actually a bucket list item. And even though this was not a game show in the sense that I went on and used my knowledge to win money, I was on a game show because I'm a GI Joe figure. Literally no one else can say that. Right? Like no one else. I have weird claims to fame, and that's one of them. And I'll tell anyone who will listen. People on the street, "Excuse me, sir, do you have a moment? I'd like to tell you I'm an action figure." And they're like, "Get off the street right now."
Oh, but that is unique, because there have been a lot of people that have worked in the product line, and Hasbro and Larry Hama and different people that have been used as character sculpts and stuff like that. But none of them can say that they were used as a game show persona to guess the identity of, kind of like the voice almost for pop culture.
It kind of is. Oh, it really kind of is. No, I speaking of real people, like a lot of my run features people who are named after real people that I know. Wraith, his name is Charles Halifax. He's modeled after my friend Charlie, and even kind of looks like him. When I fleshed out Overkill, his name is Robert Skelton. Robert Skelton was one of my best friends in high school, still is. He loves GI Joe. And there are little names here and there that are definitely people I know. I wrote some file cards for Hasbro.
You did.
Snuck in some names there as well. So
Wow,
yeah.
that's cool. I thought Larry wrote all the file cards.
Up
I
to a point.
did, yeah, up to a point. This was like, geez, 2005, 2006. A guy named Andrew Swenson was my military advisor on GI Joe, big GI Joe fan, and he and I worked on the Plague,
Ah,
and we worked on the Green Shirts, and we worked on a couple others, and now I actually can't remember. See, this is the moment of pride for me, is that I have reached a point in my career where I've worked on so many things that I don't remember things. And I used to be like, back in the early days, you'd see a creator and he's like, yeah, I don't remember that. And I'm like, how do you not remember that? How was that not the greatest thing in your life? Oh, I get it now.
Yeah, yeah.
and that's true when you do interviews with people, when you ask them questions, and people like me get them on the podium, and they ask these I won't say inane, but I'll say questions that are repetitive questions. And sometimes Larry, he doesn't remember. He doesn't
Yeah.
remember everything.
I can't blame him.
Yeah.
But you've been in now as a writer 20 years.
Yep. Yeah.
2022 now.
Yeah.
Does it
No,
feel like
sure.
it's been 20 years?
Yes and no. I mean, like, GI Joe launched a huge comics career for me that I never anticipated. And when I say that, I'm as genuine as I can be. I got Frontline and I thought, well, this is the only thing I'm ever going to write, and that's fine. And then I got GI Joe, and I'm like, well, this is the only thing I'm ever going to write, and that's fine. Like, I can't believe I made it this far, and that opened up this whole world of licensed properties for me. Like, I became the licensed property comic guy for a very long time, and that was great. I got to do a graphic novel called Shooters, which was a very serious military book, and we did that for DC Vertigo. Me and Eric Troutman and Steve Lieber. Steve Lieber, one of the greatest comic artists to ever walk the face of the earth, drew my book. Like, co-created. I want to be clear, didn't just draw my book, but like, every new thing to me for so long was just like, oh my God, I get to keep doing this. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm talking for years, and I'm this is not false humility. Like, every time I'm like, I got away with it again, right? Like, how in the world has nobody caught on? And I mean, now things have gone well enough that I'm very jaded and arrogant about it. So obviously I deserve everything coming to me. But then everything was new and exciting, and it all was because of GI Joe, all of it.
Well, you deserve it. The quality speaks for itself. I
Thank
wouldn't be here talking to you if the quality wasn't there. I wouldn't want to talk to you and find out all this stuff. I like to coin the phrase. I like to see how the sauce is made, and
Yeah.
speaking to folks like yourself and seeing how these things came to be and seeing the development and things like that is my thing. I love that. I love talking to people.
You're the reason we have jobs. So thanks for that. You're the reason anybody still talks to us. And you mentioned sauce, and I have to say it, like, any good sauce is made with patience and love, and usually a little garlic and onion, but like, it's patience and it's love, and you have to tend to it, and you have to care about it, and you have to really want the people you're serving to have a delicious meal at the end of it.
That's a good analogy. I'm going to use that. See, quality writing keeps coming out of you.
No, that one comes from having a long-term relationship with a chef. But
Josh, do you have anything you'd like to add?
If Josh was here, I'm sure he would.
I mean, not Josh, Roger. Sorry. I always do that. I apologize, Roger.
have you guys
That's
met?
okay.
Have you two
It's
met at all? Are you familiar?
Yeah, we
Like,
live about 2.5 hours away from
Yeah,
here.
about 2 hours away from each other,
Yeah.
and he's been
Yeah.
to my house, and we've hung out at cons for years and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's like when you have like Cher and Sonny, you get the two of them mixed up, maybe.
Wait, hold on. Which one is Roger?
That's a good one. I think he's a good Cher, or maybe Josh is a Cher.
No, yeah, he's a good share. I
You're
think
the Sonny Bono of the two, Roger. Sorry.
Fair enough. But one question I did want to ask, going back to the Red Shadows, did you have any intention to tie in your Red Shadows to the original Red Shadows, bring in Baron Ironblood or anything like that?
Yes, there had been Wilder Vaughn was going to be some version of Baron Ironblood, and have it be more of a title. I remember looking at how to say how to say Ironblood in German, which I think is Arnblut, or
Okay.
something along those lines.
Yeah.
Don't yell at me, German speakers. But I had looked at a lot of angles. I don't think I ever would have gone like full Skeletron or anything,
Uh-huh.
right? But I wanted to play with those motifs, and I did want them to have that sort of size to them, like be a significant threat and get into those things. So yeah, no, that was part of the original intent for sure. I also had some wacky notion at some point that we were going to reveal that Cobra Commander had actually been a Red Shadow.
Okay. Well, he sort of was in the other continuity.
yeah. So I wanted to try to get that notion in there, but that didn't make it very far. There was talk. I just remembered there was talk at one point about me doing a Cobra Commander declassified book.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just remembered that.
That would have made total sense.
Yeah.
I would like to.
Somebody should do that.
Yeah. The Snake Eyes one almost was a Cobra Commander
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have liked to have shown what was going on the other side, what he was doing that we didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All of his years as a used car salesman.
You know what? My dad was a used car salesman, and not a great guy. So as it turns out, I had a lot of context and a lot of inspiration right at my fingertips. My real dad was not smart enough to become Cobra Commander, unfortunately. But he might have been a good dreadnought.
Well,
there you go.
You say write what you know, so you have to pull from your own family and your own knowledge and your friends and people, to make these stories as real as possible. So that's good if that was the case.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anything else?
That was my main one. I was going to follow up with the Dragonsky, but we already covered that. So I think we pretty well covered everything I was going to ask anyway.
Oh. I tend to do that.
Yeah. That's why I let you talk and just hold back.
So what do you think in hindsight about the whole process and the whole Devil's Due as now 15 years gone by?
I think that I like I said earlier, I think I probably could have been a little easier to deal with at times, probably more near the end. I did try far too hard to connect with the fans to a degree that I kind of just I'd have this weekly briefing with the fans on my website or on the Devil's Due forums, and I definitely let the fans influence me a little too much, and I was far too concerned with what they were saying and suggesting and liking and not liking. And I mean, fans keep properties alive and fans keep writers alive, but at the same time, you have to be your own person and you have to trust your own instincts. And there are definitely times when I thought, oh, the fans aren't going to like this. I probably shouldn't do this, right? Or the fans seem to be asking for this. I should probably do this. And I don't know if that always led to the best decisions. And I don't know if it was the best way to approach it. I do think that if you look at comics as a whole, I think that if you look at Devil's Due and what they managed to pull off, and the fact that they could even get the license to begin with, still now, I'm just how the hell did that ever happen? Right? And somehow it did, and here we are because of it. So that's not insignificant. Yeah. The other thing I've noticed when I go back and read these books is I probably could have told all of those stories with half the words. I don't know why. There are definitely some times when I really wanted everyone to know that I know all the words by inserting them into the book. So there are times when I will read a long passage of dialogue. And now that I've been an editor, that's the other thing, is now that I've been an editor, I probably would have sent flowers and chocolates to my editors far more often, not just for having to deal with me, but just for having to edit. And they probably should have looked at some of my long run-on sentences and said, hey, we can chop this down. But they let me speak in my own voice a lot. Somebody once told me that I brought the semicolon back to comics. And I was like, oh, that's because I just write long sentences. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I had fun. And obviously there are people who still care about it. And it has definitely come back around to be important in my life again. As I sit here talking to you, as I told you before the video, this is all I can say, but I'm about to start a new job writing the Snake Eyes video game.
Excellent.
And that's literally all I can say about it. But, you know, here we are 20 years later and I'm back in G.I. Joe. And that to me is like a thing I never, ever thought would happen. And they're going to have to pry me out of here with a crowbar now. Because I'm not going anywhere if I can help it.
Yeah.
But that's a testament to the fans. When the fans are able to get in to the back room or whatever you call it, wherein you're at a concert, you get to go to the back room and see the big rock star or whatever that room is, whatever, and then you're a part of it. And now the companies are coming to you and you're getting to do this stuff that you loved as a child. That's a testament, really, that you've got the candy jar in your hands and the candy jar. Not only that, you have the candy store.
I really do. And I'm going to do my level best to not break it.
That's good plan.
Yeah, don't break the candy store.
People have always wanted a one of those quick shooter type military games for G.I. Joe. It always lended itself to that, but it never came about. So I'm curious to see what this Snake Eyes is going to be, and the future only tells how cool it's going to be.
Hopefully I can come back and talk to you about it when I mean, honestly, I mean, I know some stuff, obviously. They didn't just call me up and like, hey, you want to write Snake Eyes game? I'm like, let me quit my job. I did ask for some details, but yeah, I mean, I'm curious too, to see what it's going to be, because like, if we're ever going to do it and get it right, now is the time.
Yeah.
This is it.
Well, and Hasbro put up like millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of $1 million into this new gaming development branch of Hasbro toys. So I'm hoping that's who's doing this. And because it's an in-house brand, they're going to they'll probably be up your, you know what, a lot.
I'm going to check my contract. No one mentioned that. No one mentioned anything being up anybody's, you know what. So I'm going to really look into that.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just going to try to do my best to not get yelled at.
Yeah. Just one piece of advice.
Yes.
One piece of advice. Snake Eyes doesn't talk.
Oh, right.
Yeah. At least not before the accident, or not after the accident. So.
Well, yeah.
Hold on. Snake Eyes doesn't talk. Okay.
Let's not get off on our tangent. We got on a tangent with Josh a while back. He went off on poor Snake Eyes, but it is what it is. What are you going to do?
Right.
Other people had like I said, they had their hand in the candy jar and they broke the candy jar.
That's right.
I don't think anybody ever undertakes these things intending to do anything other than a great job. And yeah, I used to be very highly critical of things, and then I made things. So it's definitely made me, you know, sometimes you get to make the thing you want, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you make a thing that you really think is great and it's a turd. Like we're all guilty. And it's, you know, it's, I'll send you some links later to some real crap that I've written. It'll dispel any rock star myths you have about me, because there's definitely a couple things where I'm just like, you know, if my name wasn't on this, it wouldn't be so bad.
But that's every writer, even Larry has said it. I find this is interesting. You know who Kurt Busiek is, right?
Of course. In fact, I have to say, like, Kurt, I got to know Kurt fairly on in my career and ended up like being really friendly with him. I've gone out to dinner with him a few times, and in my head, I'm just like, you're Kurt Busiek. You're Kurt. You know you're Kurt Busiek, right? When I got Vampirella, he had written Vampirella. I actually went to him. I was like, hey, what's the thing that's in Vampirella that nobody cares about? and he told me about these extraterrestrial characters, Star Patch and Quark and everything, and I ended up using them prominently in my run, and that was because I went to Kurt and I was just like, tell me what's cool about Vampirella that nobody uses, and it was great. So yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I know Kurt Busiek.
But he is very famous for saying that before he was good for like 5 years, he was crap.
Yeah.
And so, you know yourself, your quality of your writing and things like that. So, as long as you can tell, hey, yeah, I know I wasn't the best at this, that's respect, not only for the fans to admit that, to yourself, that you own those mistakes and that you own that that work and stuff like that. So
go read Sherlock Holmes Year 2, a novel that I was hired to take over when the original writer was unable to finish it, and it's garbage. And it's my fault. Like, I want to be very clear, when you read that and you go, hey, this part sucks. Yeah, Jerwa wrote that part. I promise you.
Is it the comic book? The comic book?
No, it's an actual. It's a novel. You can go. Dynamite made a couple of Sherlock Holmes novels, and you could.
Because I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes file, and I have.
Oh, then you don't want to read this.
Oh, no, I have every book, I have every comic, I have everything I can find of Sherlock Holmes. So I probably already have it. What? I have to figure out what's the name of it, and I'll go look.
Sherlock Holmes Year 2. And it was written. It's credited to Scott Beatty and myself, because it started with Scott, and then I came in. And it has thylacines and some stuff about St. George's Dragon, and it's again crap. And I love Sherlock Holmes. It's not like this was unfamiliar territory to me, but
Wow.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Can't recommend.
Sherlock Holmes in the case of the missing plot points.
Oh yeah.
Well,
And how many times can I write handsome cab? Many times. It turns out.
No, but there are people out there that have written Sherlock Holmes books and stories, and they are absolutely terrible. We're getting off on a tangent, but
Public domain.
It is public domain. You're right.
Yeah.
But there was one where they made Dr. Watson like a undercover villain, and he was like this evil. Yeah, he was like this evil person working for Moriarty the entire time he was with Sherlock Holmes. I was like, why would they write this? Who the heck gave them the go ahead to put this out here? And I'm reading it. I'm like, oh, this is awful. Oh my God.
Good news, everybody. I didn't write the worst Sherlock Holmes book.
Yeah.
Woo!
So, yeah.
Number 2.
So that brings us to pretty much a close. Do you do any appearances or anything? Do you go to conventions? We have Joe Fest every year in Augusta, Georgia. I think it'd be great for you to come there.
So here's the thing, and I'm just going to be very honest with you, so that anybody involved with these Joe conventions knows, no one ever asks me. No one. I would do so many G.I. Joe events. Literally, no one ever asks me, and I've always it's always kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. Like, seriously, like there's 10 Joe conventions a year, and Brandon Jewra's phone number seems to be lost to everybody. So call me. Yeah. And I mean, as long as I'm allowed to do them with the new job, but I can't think of any reason why I wouldn't be. But oh God, I would love to, but never get the
try to keep June 10th and 11th or that weekend at least available in your schedule. Cause I have a hand in running Joe Fest, and I can maybe try to get you out there if you're able to.
Okay. Where is Joe Fest?
Augusta, Georgia.
Augusta, Georgia. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back to Georgia. I used to go for Dragon Con all the time. Dan Jolly and I would meet. Hey, put Dan Jolly and I at a table together, and we'll give you a good time.
There you go.
Cool. Sounds good. Is there any place that people can find you where they can talk to you, say hello, give you a question or two?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say an old thing. You can find me on Facebook under my name. And I take everybody. So there's a lot of Joe fans on there, and you can absolutely talk to me. I also have an Instagram that nobody looks at, which is fine. That's just pictures, the weird stuff that I like to take photos of. So yeah, I don't have a Twitter. Twitter's a dangerous, horrible place that I got out of years ago. But yeah, Facebook, Brandon Jewra on Facebook. Come and find me.
Cool. Is there anything else you would like to add, say to your fans before we break this up?
Thanks for caring. Thanks for mostly not yelling at me. And if you see my name on something, buy it. If you don't like it, no refunds. But seriously, I am only here talking to you because of fans and because of people who care about the same things that I care about, and some who seem to care about what I do with those things. So,
Yeah.
thanks for, keeping me out of Dairy Queen, I guess. Writing beats working.
That it does.
Yep, I know that one, that's for sure. And I know Roger knows that one too.
Yes.
To a degree, certainly. Maybe it'll keep me out of working soon.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Then I'm gonna say thank you very much for Roger, and thank you very much for myself. And we'll see you next time.